Good evening. My name's John Burns, and I'm the pastor of the University Baptist Church in College Park, Maryland. And tonight I come to you with the fourth installment of a little Bible study series we're calling Let Every Heart Prepare Christ Room. We're very close now to the day of Christmas Eve and Christmas. And in order to get there with our full consciousness, we feel like there's some practices, some disciplines that we need to employ to prepare our hearts and minds fully to experience the joy and the meaning and the depth of Christmas. We've looked at all sorts of various things, but tonight I want us to look at something called attentiveness, paying attention to something, to focus in on what God is doing in the birth of Jesus Christ. It takes some attentiveness. When we look at something, sometimes we do so we'll know everything about it and understand it fully. You might open up a machine or read a manual to try to figure everything there is to know about it. But that's not how I'm using the word attentiveness in this Bible study. Because I believe the more attentive we are to God, the more filled with wonder we become. We do not become know-it-alls. We do not become impressed with our own understanding and comprehension and grasp of God. No, we become overwhelmed with awe and wonder at the God who loves us and has created all that we can see. David James Duncan has a nice quote about wonder. He says, "Wonder is unknowing experienced as pleasure. Wonder is unknowing experienced as pleasure." Now, sometimes when we don't know something, we feel stupid. We feel embarrassed. We feel ashamed. Oh, I should have known. But wonder isn't that kind of an emotion. Wonder means we find joy in the fact that we can't comprehend, that the moment is bigger than our we, that we're in the presence of something much larger than ourselves. David James Duncan says you can always tell when you're feeling wonder because your mouth makes a perfect O. Duncan wrote a little short story that I've read several times in my life about a little girl that experienced cynicism, but then experienced wonder. I'm hoping it might connect you with the memory of your childhood when you were filled with wonder, because those times seem to come less and less the older we get. Well, this story is about a young girl named Dory. And Dory was highly skeptical of a lot of the things that her parents told her. When they told her there was a Santa Claus who went house to house bringing toys to every child on earth, she thought, no way, no way, that's just something they're telling me. When they told her that there was an Easter bunny and a tooth fairy who did similar things, Dory wasn't buying it. She was only interested in science textbooks and things that could be proven. She liked to watch educational things on TV. All that was good, but it tended to shut out any sense of openness or attentiveness that she might have had to wonder. And her parents were worried about it. And they thought about different ways to kind of combat that, and they finally just gave up and thought, well, she'll move through this at her own pace. And one night at dinner, they were talking about the garbage man, how that the garbage man had not come to pick up the garbage. And Dory said, who is the garbage man? And they said, well, he's a man that goes around house to house early in the morning before we wake up and takes the garbage out of our garbage cans so that we don't have to worry about that. And Dory thought, uh-oh, here we go again, another story about somebody going house to house, picking something up as if I'm supposed to believe that. And the parents said, no, this is real. This really happens. Dory wanted to prove him wrong, so he got up very early one morning and stood out behind the garbage cans, and sure enough, a big truck pulled up. And a guy with a beard got out and grabbed the garbage and threw it in the back of the truck. And when Dory stood up, he was scared, he was shocked. She went in the house and said, Mom, Dad, this is real. This is real. And so Without telling her parents, she began to put things in the garbage can for the garbage man's family. She thought he was taking all that stuff and sifting through it and keeping what was of value. She thought he must be very poor and his children very deprived. So she would put toys and books and things that were special to her, clothes, in the garbage so his family would have it. Her parents began to notice that several important things were missing from her room, and they confronted Dory on what was happening, and she explained what she was doing. And her father said, "Dory, I think you better come with me." He put her in the car with the intention of taking her to the landfill to give her a little more information about the garbage man. On the way there, a spider moved across the steering wheel of the car, and when her father saw it, he batted it to the ground and he tried to step on it. Dory liked spiders. She liked all creatures. She liked studying everything on earth. And when she saw her father swipe it to the floor and then try to step on it, she was somewhat horrified, but she was a little bit relieved to notice that he didn't really smash the spider, even though he did sever a couple of the spider's legs. And then the spider crawled away, and Dory lost contact or focus upon it. They eventually got to the landfill, and she got out, and her dad showed her where all the garbage went, and she noticed that there were several garbage men, not just one. There were several workers out in that big landfill, and she was so distraught. Then she felt foolish for putting things in the garbage can and for believing that there was some mystical guy that went around everybody's house collecting the garbage. She thought to herself, "I've been right all along. I'm not believing in any of this nonsense. Anything I can't prove, I'm not buying anymore." She went and got in the car, and her father came, and he began to drive her home. But as she watched her father drive, she saw something that gave her true amazement. In the time that they had been out walking around that landfill, that spider, that amputated spider, had built a web, not a full one, but a partial one, from the floor of the car up to the side of the steering wheel. And Dory thought, if God can make a creature who in that condition can build a web, this God is much greater than I'll ever understand. And maybe for the first time in her young life, Dory experienced wonder. When's the last time you experienced wonder? There's a famous poem by Carl Sandburg about the guy who is experiencing the opposite of wonder. It's called The Limited. Let me read it to you. He says, "I am riding on a limited express, one of the crack trains of the nation, hurtling across the prairie into blue haze and dark air go 15 all steel coaches holding 1,000 people. All the coaches shall be scrap and rust, and all the men and women laughing in the diners and sleepers shall soon pass to ashes. I ask a man in the smoking car where he is going, and he answers, Omaha." Why isn't the man in the smoking car experiencing wonder? Because his attentiveness is only on that day's journey. He's got a destination in mind, maybe business to accomplish or family to visit or some other thing to accomplish, but he's got his mind on that very temporal destination. And as a result, he's completely oblivious to the truth that he's hurtling through air on a coach that will soon be rust, and he himself be ashes, that he is on a whole life journey, an eternal journey. He was not attentive to that fact. Now, Marilynne Robinson, who wrote Gilead and many other best-selling books, she says this, "I believe also that it is among our strange privileges as human beings to have an important ability to decide what in our minds we choose to attend to, and therefore what our lives will be." Now she's saying that it's what we give our attentiveness to that makes us who we become. That if we focus on the dreary and the dismal, the mundane, the daily routine, if that becomes what we're absorbed by, we shall miss all the wonder of this world. She's calling us to be attentive to the wonder, to God's work in our lives and around us, the beauty of nature, the awe that is just surrounding us. To be attentive to that, and that will change us into better people, into more loving people, more optimistic people, more hopeful people. I believe that's true. And I think if that's true for all of life, it's certainly got to be true for specific circumstances and situations like the Christmas season. As we go through these days, if our attention is given to all sorts of scattered things, just accomplishing this and that, and what's the next task, we're going to miss the wonder. But if we put our attentiveness on the miracle of this moment, on the wondrous part of this message that God came in human flesh, God incarnate, love of the world came in a baby, then this Christmas could be one of our best ever. Hear these words from the Apostle Paul. He wrote, "Yet among the mature we do speak wisdom, though it's not a wisdom of this age or of the rulers of this age, who are all doomed to perish. But we speak God's wisdom, secret and hidden, which God decreed before the ages for our glory. None of the rulers of this age understand this, for if they had, they would not have crucified the Lord of glory. But as it is written, what no eye has seen, nor ear heard, nor the human heart conceived, that is what God has prepared for those who love him. These things God has revealed to us through the Spirit, for the Spirit searches everything, even the depths of God." Now, Paul was battling two different kind of philosophies in the world in which he wrote. One was a Gnostic philosophy that was all intellectual. They believed you had to think everything through, and if it didn't make sense here, then it wasn't real. On the other end of the spectrum, they had these ecstatic rituals where people danced and got drunk and slashed themselves, all in these sort of irrational moments of worshiping the cults of their time. And Paul thought both sides had missed the boat. He wanted to call people to an experience of the wonder of God. And he said that there's a spirit in us that God has placed there that communicates with God's spirit, and that's how we encounter God. Now just think about that you're not alone. You're not by yourself. There's something in you that is longing to communicate with God, and God is longing to communicate with you. And it is, for most of us, at the manger, at the birth of Jesus, that all that begins to open up to us. And we begin to experience the wonder of God as we give our attention to that which God has done in our midst. Anne Weems writes about some of this wonder. She says, "In each heart lies a Bethlehem, an inn where we must ultimately answer whether there is room or not. When we are Bethlehem bound, we experience our own advent in his. When we are Bethlehem bound, we can no longer look the other way, conveniently not seeing stars, not hearing angel voices. When we can no longer excuse ourselves to busily tending our sheep or our kingdoms. This Advent, let's all go to Bethlehem and see this thing that the Lord has made known to us. In the midst of shopping sprees, let's ponder in our hearts the gift of gifts. Through the tinsel, let's look for the gold of the Christmas star. In the excitement and the confusion, in the merry chaos, let's listen for the brush of angels' wings. This Advent, let's go to Bethlehem and find our kneeling places." Can you be attentive to the birth of Jesus in that way? Now, we're not shepherds and we don't have kingdoms, but we're all busy about something. We're always feeling like something is ultimate and urgent, and we don't ever have a time to get around to the spiritual yearnings of our soul. We're going to get there one day, soon as everything quiets down, soon as we get through this pandemic, soon as the children grow up, soon as we retire, whatever the word is, but we just hardly ever get there. What if we stopped right now and became attentive from our spirit to God's spirit, to the meaning of the birth of the Christ child? What if spiritually we went to Bethlehem and in our hearts made a place to kneel and worship and be quiet and be filled with awe and wonder? Dietrich Bonhoeffer wrote this: all who at the manger finally lay down our power and honor, all prestige, all vanity, all arrogance and self-will, all who take their place among the lowly, and let God alone be high, all who see the glory of God in the lowliness of a child in a manger, these are the ones who will truly celebrate Christmas. And then Howard Thurman adds these words: we often place value upon ourselves in terms of the extent and quality of our wardrobe, or by the size of our bank account, or by the number of prestige-bearing people who know us and recognize us, or by the power we're able to exert over others. Each of us makes his/her own list. What is forgotten is the fact that life moves at a deeper level than the objective and the data of our senses. We are most alive when we are brought face to face with the response of the deepest thing in us to the deepest thing in life. This we know to be prayer at its best and highest. Then we pass through all the external aspects of our situation and need. Then the walls of our pretensions are swept away, and we are catapulted out to the narrow walls that shut us in. We experience radical amazement. Spirit is met by spirit, and we are whole again. Thurman calling us this Christmas: let's not focus on the material, the busy. Let's not focus on how much power we have or the size of our bank account or any of those external things. This Christmas, let's find a way to go deeper and let our spirit commune with the Spirit of God around the manger in Bethlehem. Wendy Wright puts it this way: life is ultimately not a problem, but a mystery. To listen to its depths is finally to find one on one's knees. I'd like just to raise a possibility. What if you found some place to get alone this Christmas season and kneel? Kneel before your God. Maybe you want to say a prayer of thanks and gratitude. Maybe you want to express praise. Maybe you just want to sit in silence. But kneel. Stop everything else. You can't do much when you've stopped everything else to kneel. Kneel before the manger in your mind and let your spirit commune with God's spirit. And through that attentiveness, be filled with the wonder of the season. Thanks for joining me this week. We've got a couple of more of these. You'll see them posted soon. I hope you have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Goodbye.